Hi everyone, I hope everyone is doing well and staying safe. Today I'm going to talk to you about analyzing short stories. So I'm going to summarize Maria's plans and then I'm going to talk about specific questions and what skills you can use to analyze the passage and answer the questions. So Maria's plans is about this girl Maria whose grandfather was a carpenter. And a carpenter is someone who builds stuff by themselves. So they use woodwork or other materials and they construct things. So when Maria's grandfather is no longer in the picture, she kind of wants to take after him and be just like him. And so she thinks that if she does everything by herself, she can be just as great as her grandfather. But her grandma helps her see that having a little help every once in a while isn't really a bad thing. So let's read this first and second paragraph more closely and see what Maria thinks about her relationship with her grandfather. Maria stared thoughtfully across the yard at the tree fort. It was the first thing her grandfather had built for her. She had been little. It was before her younger brothers had been born, but she could remember Grandpa working on it, standing on a ladder out in the sun alone. Of all her siblings, Maria felt that she was most like her grandfather. Grandpa had been a carpenter. Maria had always loved visiting him in his barn. She would spend hours watching him saw, sand, and hammer. Only she had been allowed because she was the oldest. He could do anything with his own two hands, she thought proudly. So what we can see is what she thinks about her grandfather is she thinks he was really great and really nice. She felt like she had a connection with him because they would always spend hours together, and she even said that she felt like she was most like him. So obviously she was very proud of him. So this first option can't be right because it never mentioned anything about her being an official apprentice. And this option can't be right because she actually understood him pretty well and they had a good connection. So the answer has to be B. Now the 8th, ninth, and 10th. Really? By yourself? Ricardo asked. Maria nodded proudly. Like Grandpa, said Ricardo. A look of awe came over his face. Can I help? Maria thought it over. It would be nice to have some help, but she was the builder in the family, so she would have to solve her own problems. No, Maria said, I don't need any help. Why does Maria refuse to ask her brothers for help? She doesn't think she needs their help? This can't be right because she actually mentions that it would be nice to have some help. So she's admitting that having some help would be nice. But why doesn't she want to take their help? Her grandfather expected her to work alone? It never says anything about her grandfather expecting her to work by herself. So this can't be it either. So the reason why it's option number 3, she wants to be like her grandfather, is because she thought that, she was the builder now, so she had to do everything by herself. And if she did everything by herself, she could just be like her grandfather. And so now we have to explain our reasoning, which quote from the story best supports the idea that Maria wants to be like her grandfather. Like I was talking about, she thought that because she was a builder now, she would have to solve her own problems and be just like her grandfather. And now 22nd and 23rd. Maria stood up and hurried outside. Ricardo and Emil were carrying the ladder from the barn. Emil turned his head and grinned, waving at Maria. Smiling, she began to wonder if she might not be the only one to take after her grandpa. So now what has changed after Maria had this conversation with her grandma and how that affects the way she thinks about herself and her siblings? She realizes that she likes her little brothers. Well, she never said before that she didn't like them, so this can't be right. She thinks of herself as the boss of the family, not the builder. This isn't right either because these paragraphs never talk about her thinking about being a boss. So she realizes that she doesn't need to be the only builder in the family. This is true because she begins to wonder to herself if she might not be the only one to take after her grandpa. So she thinks that they can all work together and all be great builders. And yeah, that's how you analyze a short story. The key is to go back and to reread and to look for context clues and just make sure that you're looking at the specific paragraphs that they ask you to look at and that you're reading closely. And basically, once you do that, that's kind of how you analyze short stories and get the correct answers.